This is election 2022 featuring New Mexico House District 38. I'm Anthony Morneau. KRWG Public Media and the League of Women Voters are pleased to present this forum. Joining us for this forum is House District 38 Democratic candidate Tara Jaramillo. House District 38 Republican candidate Sandra Hammack informed us she was not available to join us. My co-moderator for this forum is Kathy Brooke with the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico. The rules for this forum are simple. The candidate has up to 90 seconds to answer each question and should not mention her opponent in the answer. I'll start off with the first question. Public safety has been a concern for many New Mexicans in recent years. What are some state legislative initiatives that you would support to improve public safety in New Mexico? Please explain.
Thank you for having me. When we look at public safety, and as I've spoken to people up and down the valley, it's a huge concern for everybody for different reasons. I own a company called Positive Outcomes that works with children's advocacy. And in that we find that a lot of abuse and neglect are kind of spurred on by substance abuse or mental health issues. And so when I look at that, you know, Desmond Tutu was well known to say we need to just stop pulling people out of the river, but we need to go upstream and figure out why they're falling in. And so I'm going to approach it with that and say we need mental health support for individuals. We need substance abuse support. 8 years ago, the mental health supports in New Mexico were really destroyed. And we are looking to bring that back and to support mental health support in New Mexico. I was a mental health provider in Socorro, and we were tasked with moving through our programs, but without the funding. I would like to fund mental health support.
Okay, thank you. We now go to our next question.
Following up on that, some have criticized New Mexico for not doing enough to address mental health in the state. There are limited state-run facilities available to serve a large, diverse geographic area that faces economic challenges. What are some of the top things state lawmakers can do to improve mental health resources in the state?
Number one would be to provide resources for that. It was very difficult 8 years ago when our mental health facilities closed. Many of us were able to hang on, but many of us were not. Many practitioners went to different states. We have attempted to rebuild the mental health support in New Mexico, but that comes with bringing practitioners back to our state and also ensuring that organizations feel comfortable enough to open up their doors and to provide those services, and knowing that we're going to be reimbursed for those services and not have to shut our doors again. After we do that, we really need to go down and figure out where individuals have landed. During the pandemic, it has been very difficult for mental health, and either because of shut-in or loss of family members, loss of education, lots of losses. And so we need to proactively go out and recruit individuals that will come to New Mexico and provide that support, but also let our community know where to find that support.
Moving on to the next question, there's a saying that water is life. As New Mexico continues to face a historic drought, experts are warning of a future with less water being available. What can state lawmakers do to ensure our water supply is there so future generations will have enough of this precious resource?
Well, as a farmer and rancher on the Rio Grande Valley, water is life. And we've known that this drought has been coming for 20 years. We've been in a drought, so this isn't anything new. But what needs to change is how we address this. We need to be aggressive. We need to do a feasibility study to see whether brackish water or desalination is really an option for New Mexico. We also need to work with agriculture, and we need to work with the aging water infrastructure so that we can fix what is broken. And after that, we need to work with our universities. New Mexico State University as well as New Mexico Tech have programs that are looking at how to solve this issue for New Mexico. But most importantly, the federal government has $4 billion available to the Southwest, and New Mexico needs to be a part of that, and we need some of that funding so that we can investigate what we need to do for New Mexico to solve this issue, not just for today, but for our children.
Thank you.
Ms. Jaramillo, New Mexico continues to struggle with child well-being in the state. The state created an early childhood education and care department to take on this issue. What do you think state lawmakers can do to address ongoing issues facing the well-being of children?
I am also a provider of early intervention program, and of course we were part of the ECECD department when it was established, and that is a wonderful first step, is bringing us all, consolidating all of us into one early childhood department. What also needs to happen, and I am a supporter of using 1% of the general fund to support our families and our children, but this is not just a school problem or just a family problem. This is a community problem. I believe in community schools. I believe that that is the answer to bring families into our educational system to solve some of the systemic issues that we're seeing, which include mental health, substance abuse. We're also the poorest state in this nation, and we're going to continue to see these things unless we solve the economy, unless we solve health care. If we look at healthcare and sustaining healthcare, we know that children who have consistent healthcare do better in school, and they graduate more often from school. And so there are all these fundamental resources that also go to the welfare of children that we must support.
Thank you.
Staying with education, education continues to be a challenge facing New Mexico. What are efforts you would support to improve education in our state?
Again, we go back to not just supporting education, but supporting the family and all those other resources that we need to do. So I am also on the Socorro School Board, and during the pandemic what we really saw is children who could not be educated because of the lack of broadband, because of the lack of access. And so we need to change those systems as well. So we're lagging behind because of technology in our schools. That's just a fact in our rural areas, and we know that. And we're working on that. The state needs to support that. But in addition to, when we look at, again, we are the poorest state in this nation, we need to work on that as well, and supporting families to grow. And so that is part of what we need to do to change education. Paying teachers a higher wage, that was a must. It had to happen, and I'm grateful that it did. And now we need to look forward. We also need to look at health insurance rising and the costs of that, and supplementing that for our educators, but also all supportive staff within the school districts. And we need to work with families. And again, I'm a proponent of community schools and those wraparound services that really support our families.
Thank you.
Related to some of your answers, school staffing shortages are impacting many communities in our country. What do you think state lawmakers can do to ensure that New Mexico will have enough teachers in the future?
Well, as a daughter of educators and also somebody who worked in the Socorro schools, I know that it is all of that paperwork and those types of things that move us away from what we do, which is education. And so the governor has taken a wonderful step in decreasing that for us, and I would like to continue on that path of being able to educate our children with what we know as professionals. Paying a decent salary for our professionals is obviously my priority, but also when we look at schools and funding schools, we have to look at it differently. Rural New Mexico is so much different than Las Cruces or Santa Fe or Albuquerque because our schools are so spread apart. If you look at Socorro, our children are bused into our central location of a school district for middle school and high school. So some children are on the bus for an hour in the morning to get to school. We need to support local schools, local community schools that support the family as well. This is not uncommon in Tier C, where Elephant Butte's children are then transported to Tier C. So looking at the uniqueness of rural schools and having that community help solve the issues of our schools is vital.
Thank you.
New Mexico's workforce has been challenged as the state has been losing its working age population. What are some things that state lawmakers can do to help keep working age people in the state?
Well, I think we need to raise that minimum wage, and we need to pay salaries that individuals can live off of and that families can live off of. And that's a priority. We also need to support education. And education is not just college-bound students, but also those students who want to pursue degrees in welding and agriculture and electrical work. We need to support a diversity of education with our children.
Okay.
State lawmakers have worked in recent years to create tax incentives and rebates for the film industry. Do you support these efforts? Also, are there other ways to create a sustainable future for this industry without depending heavily on taxpayers?
I do support the effort because I know that we need to diversify in New Mexico. Right now we are very dependent on oil and gas, and we see that that may be coming to an end. Although it has been a wonderful run with oil and gas, we need to make some changes. And as a small business owner, I understand that diversification is really the key to success and to keeping your doors open, and that is no different than a state-run government. So we need to support diversity in New Mexico, and the film and studios are something that we do need to support.
Thank you.
Lawmakers in New Mexico do not get paid a salary. They do receive a per diem for help with travel expenses, but do not make a salary. Do you support efforts to pay New Mexico state representatives and state senators a full-time salary, yes or no?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Would you like me to expand
Please
on it?
do.
Was it yes or
Please
no?
do, yes.
So, really the decision for me to run could not have happened unless I was also ready to retire. And if I didn't have retirement, I don't know that I could afford to run. This district that I am running for is so vast. I believe I told you it's 2.5 hours from my home. That is just, it wasn't workable during a primary, and it certainly wasn't workable to work and do this during a general election. So what we need to ensure is that anybody who wants to run can run, and not just those who are in a position to have money to be able to run. And so, yes, I do support paying our legislators.
Thank you.
Our next question is, what, if anything, should the state be doing to expand affordable housing options in New Mexico?
So in Socorro, what we're looking at is 48 families who are homeless in our schools. So, and this is not uncommon across the board. I know that Albuquerque and Las Cruces have some funding to build and expand on housing in their communities. Rural communities do not have that option yet. And so we need to afford rural communities that same funding to expand our housing options. Right now, we have 10 families with vouchers to pay for rent on homes and no homes to get them into. And so we need to act quickly and be able to provide that service for families.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next question. New Mexico taxpayers spent at least $220 million to build and support Spaceport America. Do you feel New Mexico taxpayers are getting a return on this investment? Please explain.
Well, in speaking with Mayor Whitlock and also the mayor of Elephant Butte, I think I mirror their concerns that they don't feel like their communities have had a return on Spaceport. Now, they do believe they have a really good relationship with Virgin Galactic, which is now building a spa and resort in Elephant Butte on Champaign Hill. But what they have asked for, and what I agree with, is that if Spaceport is going to support all of New Mexico, then all of New Mexico has to support Spaceport. And having that onus on Doña Ana and Sierra County is unfair. And I agree with them. I mirror that response, and I believe if we're going to continue to support Spaceport, then New Mexico needs to support Spaceport.
Our next question is about a constitutional amendment. Would you support a constitutional amendment to place redistricting in the hands of an independent commission? Why or why not?
I would. I believe in people making decisions for their future. And this district that I'm in, I'm absolutely loving meeting the people and the individuals, but I wonder if this is what was best for New Mexico. And I do support that, and I think it should be independent, and I believe it shouldn't be a decision on party lines as to how we redistrict.
Thank you.
Do you support extending the length of legislative sessions beyond the current 30 days in even years and 60 days in odd years? Why or why not?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I have been told by members of the House that things move slowly in Santa Fe. And I think that I will have to be in Santa Fe to see just how that pace works for me. I know I'm a very fast-paced, I'm a business owner, and I know things need to change quickly. I've been told that may be quite frustrating for me. So I like having deadlines because then everybody has to come to the table and let's just get it done. But I could see that maybe there isn't enough time to get that done. So right now, to be honest, I'm not sure.
Thank you.
What, if anything, should be done to make the legislative process more transparent to citizens? Please explain.
Well, I think that I was talking with a friend and I said, I really should have, when I opened my business 25 years ago, I went into Barnes & Noble and I bought this one-page accounting manual that said Accounting for Dummies. And I said, boy, wouldn't it be great if they had something like that for running for office, because there's so much I don't know. And I think we need to simplify for the layperson what happens with legislation. I think we need to present that more to communities. One thing that I was very concerned about as the Children's Advocacy Program are CARA plans that happen in New Mexico for babies that are born addicted. And although the legislation sounded amazing and it had amazing support, the boots on the ground didn't find it amazing because there were no teeth in there. How do we provide the support for the families, the parents, and the children when it's all voluntary? And I think those things are concerns. How do we include the community in making these decisions for their own community? And we need more transparency, and we need to talk to more people.
Thank you.
What actions, if any, should the legislature take to strengthen and/or diversify the New Mexico economy?
Well, I think that cannabis has been hugely successful in New Mexico, and they're diversifying in that way. Las Cruces is opening up film studios and diversifying in that way. Tourism needs to open up. I was at Elephant Butte, and Elephant Butte is at 1%. And that goes back to water issues. So all of these issues are interconnected with how New Mexico is going to succeed in the future. And we really need to be able to support the infrastructure of New Mexico to do that.
Thank you.
Our next question is about prisons and detention centers. What are your thoughts on public and private prisons as well as detention centers in New Mexico? Please explain.
Well, I think my quick thought is that privatized institutions are there to make money. And so in doing that, they could cut costs. And my fear would be, are they paying their employees what they need to be paid so that we can maintain safe environments in these institutions? And support our corrections officers. Are they giving them the retirement that they need? So I'm a proponent of non-privatized prisons and correctional facilities. I believe that should be a state-run facility.
Thank you.
What would you do to ensure that our elected officials uphold their oath of office regardless of political affiliation?
I think accountability. you know, I'm not a politician. I had never run before until I ran in November for school board, and then this came up. So it's kind of baptism by fire. And but the one belief I know is that I believe in this country, and I believe in its laws, and I believe those laws need to be followed. And when they're not, then there must be accountability for not doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Do you think there are changes that need to be made with our election laws to protect voting rights and to ensure trust in our democratic system?
You know, during the pandemic, I lived at Alamo Navajo Indian Reservation, and it was during voting. And during that time, I have to share that we had already lost about 70 individuals in our small community, and including 6 employees and my father. And that evening, I sat there wondering, as everybody gathered to vote, because we do not have a post office. So absentee and early voting was not really an option, and we were shut in. So we could not go to the courthouse and do early voting. And that was really what changed inside of me, of saying we need to change how we're doing elections in New Mexico and ensure that rural communities, Native communities have the ability to vote. We stood in line for 2 hours after the polls closed. And after that, we had a huge surge of COVID, and we lost more people. So I believe that drop boxes need to be used. I believe there should be a paper trail for every ballot that's cast, but I believe it should be easier to vote in New Mexico rather than harder.
Thank you.
What would you change, if anything, to the current campaign finance laws in New Mexico?
Well, of course, I'm new to this. So I've been told that reporting is more stringent, and I know that we count every dollar and put those on the campaign finance reports and do that. I do know that there are some individuals that may not be following those laws, and again, I go back to we need to enforce what we have established we would do. I am obviously very concerned about that money that comes in that is not the money that I earned, but that comes out to do ads and those types of things for candidates without their approval. That concerns me. So those types of things I would like to do away with.
Switching gears here, what strategies would you deploy to move towards clean energy while protecting employees in the oil and gas industry?
Well, we have to move to green energy. I think we know that, and there needs to be a smooth transition to that green energy. Right now, we don't have the infrastructure for it, but we need to get to the infrastructure. And we need to also employ oil and gas in helping us get there. They need to be good stewards of our land, and they need to clean up what they do. But then they also need to reinvest in our communities so that we can find green energy.
Thank you.
Some have called for lawmakers at the federal and state level to codify a woman's right to an abortion. As a state lawmaker, what steps would you take in regards to abortion law and abortion access in New Mexico? Please explain.
I believe in women's reproductive rights, and I believe in a woman's right to make decisions on her body based on her medical decisions and with the input of her doctor. So I will always support a woman's right to make those decisions.
Okay, we have time for one last question.
All right. Gun violence has been a major concern for those in our state. How do you plan to address gun violence? Are there any gun laws that you would support?
Yes. So rural New Mexico, I think somebody told me it's harder to find somebody who doesn't own a firearm than somebody who does. And so I'm a hunter. I'm a gun owner. But I also see what happened in Uvalde, and that can't happen to our children ever again. I believe in common sense background checks and holding people accountable for when they do not secure their firearms. I support the law the red law that says that if you are deemed violent, that the police department can come in and secure that firearm. So those are the things I believe in, and those are the things that I would support.
Thank you.
Okay, we want to thank you so much. That is it for the District 38 Candidate Forum. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, we want to thank Democratic candidate Tara Jaramillo for joining us. Thank you to our co-moderator, Kathy Brooke of the League of Women Voters of Southern New Mexico. I'm Anthony Moreno. Thank you for joining us. And remember, Election Day is Tuesday, November 8th.